Hey Bob, here is how you can stack a photograph using Deep Sky Stacker. I'm using Deep Sky Stacker 4.26, the 64-bit version. Over here on the left are all the options, and there's a hidden little scroll bar right here you can use to kind of get all the way to the bottom here. When I open this up, the first thing we should do, or you should do, is click on Load right here under Options, and then Restore Default Settings. You don't have to do this every time, but I think you should do it for at least this first attempt when we're stacking this photo. Now, we're going to open up some picture files up here at the top left. I'm going to click on Open Picture Files. I have a bunch of photos that I've taken with the 12-inch Dobsonian telescope. This is M13. I'm just going to open one of these just to show you what it looks like. All right, I've opened the photograph, but you notice there's nothing here. So I'm going to click on the photograph down here in the list of light frames, and there it is. There's the photograph of M13. And yes, it does appear very dark, but that's what this slider is up here. And you were asking questions about it, and I was going to show you that these three little carets, these three triangles, these are the only things that I really mess with. You can grab the middle one and drag it all the way to the left. That will make it a lot brighter. You can make it even brighter by grabbing this white triangle here on the right and dragging it more to the left. That'll increase just the brightness of all the white points. And you can increase the darkness by grabbing this black triangle here on the left and dragging this one to the right. Okay, so these three carets up here, these three triangles, will adjust the brightness and the darkness of your photograph. And that's really all they do. This doesn't actually adjust how the photograph is going to turn out in the end. It's just for this display here at the beginning, just so you can see what it is that you're working with. So here, let's just play with it and try and make it a little nice. There. Now we can see M13. You can use the mouse wheel on your mouse to scroll in, to zoom in, sorry. And wow, look how messy this photograph is. We're going to try and stack this to make it look a little bit better. Let's add some more light frames. I'm going to delete this one right here, the photograph that we're looking at. I'm going to go ahead and I right-clicked on it, and I'm going to remove it from the list. That way, I won't have that file being duplicated when I add in all of these extra images. Okay, so I just don't want to accidentally duplicate it. So I'm going to go ahead and add, let's say, 42. Well, technically it's 43 because I have a 0 there. So let's go there. Yeah, now we got 42 frames. I'm going to open those. And these were all taken with a 12-inch Dobsonian telescope. And you can see that M13 is drifting across the field of view. That's because the Dobsonian telescope doesn't track. We can scroll over here to the right under the light frames information, and you can see that we were doing 1/3 second of exposure time with the ISO set to 500. And we were taking FITS files. That's basically like a raw file. And I did this with my ZWO ASI 294, the uncooled camera. Okay, so now we have all of our light photos added in. Next, I'm going to go ahead and click Check All on the left. Then I'm going to click Register Check Pictures. Okay, it's going to show you a pop-up that says Register Settings. You can copy the settings that I have here. Notice that I haven't added any dark frames or flat frames, offset frames, no bias frames. We're just doing some light frames just to get a simple stack. I'm going to automatically detect hot pixels and stack after registering. After all those photos were registered, I'm going to select the best 80% of the pictures and stack them. The reason I chose 80 is because I've got lots of satellites and things flying through my photographs, and 80% of them will hopefully be clean photographs that don't have any artifacts. That's the goal, but there might still be some trails from satellites showing up even in the 80% that I have. Okay, so I'm going to... Actually, sorry, one more thing. I'm going to go to the Advanced tab up here, and in the Advanced tab, I'm going to click Compute the number of detected stars. 121 stars. That's decent. If you have less than that, if you've got say maybe 30 stars, go ahead and click on this little slider button and drag this threshold to the left. You don't want to go all the way to the left. You just want to get close. 5% is probably as low as I would go, but compute the number of detected stars. Look at that, it's 667. The more number of stars you have detected, the harder your processor is going to have to work during the stacking process. So I'm going to drag my slider back up to about 10% and click compute the number of detected stars again. And 121 stars, I like that. You can also click reduce the noise by using a median filter down here in the bottom left. And that will make it so that the stacking process won't accidentally select a hot pixel or just noise in the background and think that that's a star. I believe that's how it works. Let me know if I'm wrong. So I'm going to compute the number of stars again, and now you can see it has detected less stars, 102 stars instead of the 121. So perhaps 20 or 19 stars there were actually hot pixels or just noise in the background. So that's what that reduce the noise by using a median filter will help us get rid of. Now, I'm going to go back over to the Actions tab, and just for funsies, I'm going to click on Recommended Settings, just so you can see some of the recommended settings that we're using here. I'm predicting that my image is going to be a little hard to edit once it's done stacking. To fix that, we may have to use this option down here, use RGB background calibration. If the RGB channels are too separated, I'll just show you what that looks like. Here, let's go ahead and click OK. We haven't adjusted anything. Now I'm going to click OK here. And it's telling me that my total exposure time, it doesn't have it actually calculated, but we're using 42 frames, all that stuff. We've got no offsets, no darks, no flats. Okay, we will begin stacking now. Click OK. And it's registering all those photos. Currently it's counting the number of stars in each photograph. And I just remembered, we're only doing 80%, so we might not actually be stacking all 42 of those photos. Yeah, see there it is, we're only stacking 33. So it's stacking, and you can see that there's slight angle adjustments that's rotating each frame. It's also offsetting each frame by X and Y, 97, 55, so that meant that one of those frames was offset from the reference frame by that many pixels. Okay, and here's our 33 images stacked together of M13. And look at that. I can see that the red and the green and the blue channels are separated, just like I predicted. We can fix that right now. I'm going to use my mouse wheel to zoom in. And that does look smooth. It does look smoother than how it looked when we were looking at the preview. Okay, I see some trails here. Maybe a satellite was passing through and we got that to pick up in the stack, but still, that's not so bad. But you notice how it's black and white. So I'm going to go ahead and click on saturation. And I'm going to adjust my saturation to 20% and click apply. And there it is. You can see that now we've got a lot of color in there. It's very green, which coincidentally, here, look at this. We see that the green channel is a little bit to the right. I'm going to use my mouse wheel on this curve here, this RGB curve. I'm going to use that mouse wheel. I'm going to zoom in on this. Okay, now I can see the RGB curves closer and in better detail. So let's go back over to RGB/K levels. Now I'm going to adjust this triangle, this red triangle, this middle one. I'm going to click it, and then I'm going to use my arrow keys. The up, down, left, and right arrow keys. I'm going to click the right arrow key. And you saw that? You see how the red channel just moved to the right? I'm going to go ahead and press the arrow key again. Oops. I'm going to click it, and then press the arrow key. There it goes. Now red is far to the right. So now everything should appear more red. But we're not going to see that until I click apply. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, and there it is. It looks a bit more red. A little yellow too, because the green is still strong in there. So let's try and balance this out a little bit. Let's click on the blue channel here in the middle. And again, I'm going to use my right arrow key to move it over. And there it is. I just moved it over just once. And now it looks like our channels are more aligned. They're not perfect, but this looks better. Let's go ahead and click apply. And there it is. Cool, I can see some blue stars in there. It still looks fairly green to me. One more thing I can do is try and back off on the green channel by clicking on the green's triangle here and pressing on my left arrow key. That moved it over quite a bit to the left. This could appear very purple, as the RGB spikes are suggesting they will appear. Let's hit apply. And it does look like the background appears more purple. It's you can just mess with it and use your artistic intuition to figure out what colors look best. Also, you can look up some photographs that NASA has taken and try and get the colors to look as close as possible to their images. Now I'm just going to go ahead and mess with this more. First, I'm going to zoom in just the way I want to. And check this out. I'm going to go ahead and come over to linked settings. When I click this, that means that anything I do here, it'll drag all three of the red, green, and blue channels together. So I can only just mess with one of these triangles, and all three will move together. So I'm going to grab this left one, the dark one, and I'm going to increase basically the noise. I'm like increasing the exposure by doing this. If I click on this, you can drag it with your mouse, or you can use your arrow keys like we were using before, and you can see that there's more information that's going to be showing up in our photograph when we do this. So let's just see how much we can abuse it. You don't want it to look, the spikes to look too ugly, not like this. So I'm going to back that off just a little bit. Like that. I got these three little bumps here, but we won't worry about that. Now you can see that the spikes are wider. That's good. Before, they were skinnier. That means we have less data to work with, and I'm going to, or not less data, but the data is cramped, it's cropped, it's dark. We want to brighten up all that information. So I'm going to move these carrots over a little bit to the right. And there it is. We've amplified the data. But it's probably going to be very dark because of this black line. This black line shows you your luminance. This is like your luminance curve. And you want your spikes to be in the curve, not at the base of the curve. Watch, I'll hit apply and it'll look very dark. There it is. It's very dark. So to fix that, we're going to go ahead and click on, say, blue or green. See, once I messed with that, it adjusted all three together because I still had linked settings clicked. If I didn't have linked settings clicked, that wouldn't have happened. Okay, so I'm going to now click on one of them, and I'm going to move all three channels to the right, and this puts it back into the luminance curve. This will make everything brighter. Let's go ahead and hit apply again. Cool, but it's green again, so we're going to have to go back and readjust those color channels just like we did before. I'm going to do that real quick. Do that. Okay, you notice how I can't get the red channel to be perfectly lined up with the blue and the green right now. If I go just one to the right, it goes too far. If I go one to the left, it goes too far to the left. So what I can do is make sure that the red channel is a little bit to the left of where I want it to be. Then click on this bright red arrow over here, and then go ahead and start moving it to the left. And if you notice, that'll make the spike move to the right. It's a little counterintuitive, but okay, so I'm going to keep moving this arrow to the left until I see that the red channel is lining up perfectly on the right. Basically, the goal is to get this side of your spike to be gray. You can have colors on the left side of the spike, but on the right-hand side of the spike, you want it to be almost perfectly gray. Here I can see that there's a little bit of red, yellow, and green. So Perhaps if we pull in the blue a little bit more, that'll make this side gray. Let's do that now. Right now the blue is to the left, too far to the left, so I'm going to grab the right arrow right here, the right triangle, and there, now I feel like I've got the colors as even as they can be, almost perfectly gray. Let's go ahead and hit apply and see what that looks like. And there it is. That's how you can adjust your colors and get your colors to look the way you want them to, using just these RGB spikes and these sliders here. One last thing I want to show you for adjusting how your image looks within Deep Sky Stacker is to go over to your Luminance tab. Now I'm going to zoom out on my RGB curve, or my RGB spikes, and I want to see more of this luminance curve because that's what we're going to be messing with next. Right now, the luminance curve is detecting some noise basically. This looks like it's just noise in the background that we've amplified. So I'm going to choke that out or get rid of it. How I'm going to do that is by making my luminance curve steeper. And by doing that, this slider right here under darkness, the second slider in darkness, if you grab it and move it to the right, that will make the luminance curve steeper at the base. That'll cut out the noise that we amplified. So let's go ahead and hit apply to see how that affects our image. Cool, look at that. The background became much darker. Got rid of some of that noise. Now, I want to try and get more of this data, this information here, to be within the luminance curve. So I want to get these spikes to be more to the right. I'm going to go over to mid-tone here in luminance. And I'm going to click on the middle one. I'm going to click on the one next to 10 degrees, the first mid-tone slider, and I'm going to start adjusting this. This makes your luminance curve even steeper by adjusting this degree here. You can go all the way to 0, but it's going to look like crap. Let's see what that looks like, actually. Yeah, that's ugly. So let's adjust the luminance curve so that there's a little bit more of a slope, so it's not just a cliff. Also, the goal is remember, was to get more of this information into the luminance curve. So let's drag it over to the left. How we can do that is by adjusting this second slider here. And there, I've adjusted to 30.4. I'm going to hit apply. And there we go. We've got a lot more information now. There, wow, look at all these streaking stars, all these satellites coming through here. Messy. Okay, and there is a stacked image of M13. I'm gonna adjust my midtones just a little bit more so I can make it darker in the background. I have adjusted the second slider now to 31.6. I'm gonna hit apply. There it is. That made everything a little bit darker and cleaner. And now I can go ahead and save my picture to a file. Over here under processing, I can click save picture to file. And I will save it as M13 test. Sweet. Now, when we go to M13 test, it will be there. There's M13 test, and there's our star cluster. Now, if you notice, some of the stars have black centroids to them. So one way to get around that, I found out, was instead of saving the picture to file, you can copy current picture to clipboard. Then go into your favorite photograph editing program. I'm going to use GIMP and hit paste. And there it is. There's your photo that you have just stacked, and that you can edit it right here if you want to. Like in GIMP, I can come here and start messing with the curves, make everything a little brighter, make the core brighter, crop it if I want to. Cool. That's how you do that. Now, let's see what happens if I stack even more photos. Because that was only 42 photos. I've actually got 586 photos that I could stack. So I took a lot of photos with my Dobsonian. I'm going to stack those now. Let's see what that looks like compared to a stack of 42 photos. So remember, to stack, once you've loaded all your files, you go check all, and then you can click register checked photos, or register checked pictures. Go over to your advanced tab, use reduce the noise by using median filter at the lower left, then compute the number of detected stars. Click OK. Begin your stack by clicking OK. And stack away. Okay, so we're still stacking those 586 photographs, but I just wanted to show you the difference here between an unstacked photograph of M13 taken with a 12-inch Dobsonian telescope. We were using a ZWO ASI 294, and here's a stack of 42 photographs. So 42 of these types of photographs looks like this once you stack them. No dark photographs or bias or flats or any calibration frames of any kind. So you can see the benefits of stacking here. I can even see some faint stars here off to the left that it just look like noise here on a single frame. Anyways, okay, we're done stacking all those frames. Let's see how it looks compared to 42 frames of stacked photographs. Pretty blurry. Let's do all those settings that we just did in the last one, all those edits that we just did. First, I'll adjust my saturation. And you can do this in whatever order you like. I just like to do my saturation first. I'm going to click apply after adjusting it to 20%. Very green. So this time I'm going to go in a different order. I'm going to adjust my darkness and my luminance. I'm going to do my RGB levels last. So I've adjusted the darkness, the second darkness slider all the way to the right. And I'll leave the mid-tone sliders just the way they are. I'm going to go ahead and click apply, see how that looks. Cool, I've already eliminated that background noise. Now I'm going to go to my RGB/K levels and start messing with those. First I'll go to linked settings here in the bottom left. I'm going to now mess with this left arrow on the blue channel. And remember, when linked settings is enabled, that will adjust all three sliders simultaneously. So it doesn't matter if I adjust this one on the green channel or the red channel. You notice how it adjusts all three of them at the same time. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just mess with the blue channel. And I'm going to try and move it to the right. And this time I'm using my mouse, not my arrow keys, just to show you that you can do it however you like to do it, whatever works best for you. Now as I move it more to the right, I'm starting to see the noise pick up here in the left-hand part of the screen of my histogram. And so now I'm going to move all of my channels over to the right a little bit so that they're back in the luminance curve. Now I'm going to deselect linked settings so I can start manipulating the channels individually. I'm going to zoom in with my mouse wheel to see the channels a little bit clearer. It looks like green is all the way to the right there, so I'm going to adjust my green channel and bring it to the left. Looks like my red channel's far too to the left, and so I'm going to click on my red channel in the middle, and I'm going to drag it over to the right. Now this is too hard. I can't seem to get it perfectly aligned there. I want to get the red channel to meet up with the blue and the green, just nice and flush. So I'm going to fine-tune my red channel's position by grabbing the far right arrow, or far right triangle, start dragging this to the left, and there. It looks like all of my channels are now nice and lined up. Perhaps I could move blue just a tinge more to the right, so I will fine-tune the blue channel by selecting the blue triangle here, the bright blue triangle on the far right. I'm going to move it just a little bit to the left, like that. Let's see how that looks when I hit apply. Ooh, wow, that looks much nicer. If you notice, there's no streaks or anything like that here. I still have our stack of 42 photographs right here. You notice these hot pixels were getting picked up and actually implemented into our stack here. Over here, when we have no stacked photographs, you can see just how awful this looks. And here's 42 stacked photographs, and here's 500 stacked photographs, actually 468 frames, because we only used 80% of all the frames that we had. And cool, so I'm going to go ahead and copy that to a clipboard. I'm going to come over here and paste a new layer. And so now you can see the difference between 468 photographs stacked together versus 33. Here's 33 photographs stacked together, and here is 468. Look, I can even see some stars over here that don't appear in the 42 stacked photographs, but then they do appear in the 468 stacked photographs. I can see one star right there, right there, right there, right here, right here. Then when I go back to the other one, it's just noise in the background. Cool. So there you go. That's M13 stacked with a 12-inch Dobsonian telescope. I hope that helps you figure out how to get a stack going for your first stack. But why stop there? Let's do it again. Let's do another photograph. So I've reloaded Deep Sky Stacker. I'm going to restore my default settings. I'm going to open my picture files. Actually, I already have them right here. Here it is. These are my M45 photographs that I took from Heather Meadows, and let's see how many I have. I've got 62 of them. I'm going to go ahead, and this is another way you can load files into Deep Sky Stackers. Once you've selected them all, you can go ahead and just click and drag all of them over here. You'll see a little plus icon appear at the bottom right of your mouse icon, your cursor, and you can let go, and that'll add all the files to it. So you just drag and drop the files. I'm going to add 62 light frames. Click OK. I can click on one of these photographs here in the list. This will show us what it looks like. And I'm going to adjust my sliders, and I can see some nebulosity around the stars. I've adjusted this slider here at the top right to make the image a little bit brighter. This middle one, you can make the white points even brighter by grabbing this far right one again. And again, this does not edit the photograph in any way. This is just so we can see what photographs we're working with. Okay, now that I have all my photographs loaded, I'm going to check all just in case they weren't checked. And then I'm going to click on Register Checked Pictures. I'm going to go over to my Advanced tab. I'm going to click on Reduce Noise by using a median filter. I'm going to compute the number of detected stars. That is a lot of stars for 10%. I'm going to go ahead and just use that. I'm going to go with that. One more thing. I'm noticing I'm struggling with the color in my photographs. Every time the photograph gets stacked, I'm having to go back and adjust my RGB channels. Let's see if we can eliminate that step and also make it so that it comes out more natural looking like this right off the bat. So how I'm going to do that is over here under the Actions tab or Advanced tab, doesn't matter which one you're on, you want to go to Recommended Settings at the bottom left here. Click on that. Scroll down, And we're going to use that setting that I had a hypothesis about earlier. I think that this will make it so that our RGB channels are more aligned and we will have to do less work once we've finished the stacking process. I'm going to click that, and that is now going to align the channels for us, hopefully. I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to continue on with using 80% of the photographs that we've taken. You can adjust this to whatever you feel would be best for you. You can use 100% of the photographs that you've taken if you feel like every one of them is crystal clear and has no artifacts, or if you want the artifacts to show up. It's up to you. So next I'm going to click OK. What's cool about these photographs is that I took them with a Canon Rebel SL2, and there is enough information contained in the photograph that it can tell me how much exposure I will have once I've combined all my photographs together. So they're telling me that one frame has 20 seconds worth of exposure on it, and if I combined 61 frames, I would have 30 minutes and 30 seconds worth of exposure. Okay, let's click OK here in the bottom right and start stacking the photograph. I'm going to register the photos, and it's counting all the stars in each one. And if you notice, it's taking longer for each frame than it did in our last stack session when we did the M13 stack. It's because it's having to detect hundreds of more stars per frame than it did in the previous settings that we did, where we were only detecting 100 stars per frame. Let's let this go and see how it works. Okay, we're done stacking M45, and look at that. Those spikes, those RGB spikes, they're all on top of each other. Looks like we'll have to do very little editing here. So I'm going to go over to linked settings, and I'm going to click that. I'm going to now drag one of my channels, the very left triangle. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to start dragging that to the right so I can amplify the data that we have. I'm going to use my arrow keys just so I can fine tune it just right. It looks like right about there is where we'll have some background noise starting to kick in. So that's where I'll leave it. If I go any further, it starts to get weird. So I'm going to move it back. And those spikes look much wider than they did initially. So all I did was adjust it by 1. Next, I'm going to select the middle triangle in the blue channel, still with linked settings enabled. I'm going to start moving this over using my arrow keys. I'm going to move it pretty much here to the middle. I want to get my spikes closer to the middle right now, just because. Okay, there's our image of M45. It's a little bit brighter now. So I'm going to go to my luminance curve, and I'm going to amplify the darkness by adjusting the second slider of darkness to the right. That steepens our luminance curve. Then I'm going to make my luminance curve move over to the right by adjusting the second slider in midtone, and adjust that by moving that to the right. Now you can see that the luminance curve is also moving to the right with it. And now I'm going to make my luminance curve a little steeper by adjusting the first slider in middle tone. I'm going to adjust that to the left to about 8 degrees. Now let's see what that looks like. That looks really cool. Although it is in black and white. So let's give it some color. Let's go to saturation. Right now saturation is at 0%. I'm going to move my saturation slider over to the right to about 20%. Click apply. Awesome. That is the Pleiades star cluster. That looks really cool. Now let's see what would happen if I were to have my spikes more to the left, and I tried to get my luminance curve also to the left instead of the middle here. First, I'm going to go over to the RGB levels, and I'm going to move my channels, my RGB channels to the left. Move it over here. And then I'm going to move my luminance slider to the left by adjusting the second slider in midtone under the luminance tab. I'm going to adjust that second slider to the left. And I've moved the luminance curve so that it intersects the data, our RGB spikes, right in the middle. It's going right up the middle of the mountain right there. I'm going to go ahead and click apply. And you see it's a little softer. I'm going to adjust the midtone second slider a little bit more to the right. That way the luminance curve moves more to the right. This will make it so that it's a little darker in the background. The further you have your luminance curve away from your spikes to the right, the darker the image will be. So if I moved it all the way to the right over here and clicked apply, see, we can only see the stars now in the Pleiades star cluster. And by the way, up here in the upper left, well, once you move your mouse there, it moves to the lower left. Come back here. That shows you a zoomed in version, a zoomed in view of whatever it is that your mouse is hovering over. So if I hover over the star, I can see that the colors look very off. It has this teal border with a blue border around it. That doesn't look like a star to me at all. And so I'm going to go ahead and move my midtone slider, the second slider, back over to the left so that I have the luminance curve intersecting the spikes, and click apply. There it is. There's the data again. Now, if I did not stretch the data immediately when I used link settings and I messed with this, if I didn't do this adjustment right at the very beginning, let's see what it would look like. Let's hit reset and click apply. So now we're back to square one. By the way, if you ever feel like you've gone too far into your settings and you've messed up your photo beyond repair, you can always click that reset button right there at the bottom, and that will bring it right back to square one. So now, with link settings still applied, I'm going to click one of the middle channels, and I'm going to bring all three channels back over to the middle, and I'm not going to amplify the data this time. Let's see what it looks like. I'm going to do all the same things I did with my luminance curve. I'm going to make the dark areas darker. I'm going to adjust my midtone back to 8 degrees. I'm going to bring my curve just so that it's a little bit in the middle there. And I'm going to increase my saturation to 20%. Notice nothing's changed here. I haven't clicked apply once. So these are all just settings I have burned into muscle memory almost. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click apply now. It doesn't look like it has as much nebula to it, to me, without amplifying the data. And that could be something that you're going for in your photographs. So you could do that as well. And here, let's just save the photograph. I'm going to copy the current picture to clipboard. I'm going to go into GIMP or whatever photograph editing program you like to use. When you are in Deep Sky Stacker and you say copy current picture to clipboard, that will save it to your clipboard so you can just edit and paste it into any editing program you like. Go ahead and make a new photograph. And I'm just going to adjust my settings of my image size just so I know that it will be able to contain the photograph that we just copied to the clipboard. I'm adjusting it to 10,000 by 10,000. You may know exactly the resolution that you're working with, but in case you don't, that's one way to get around that. So now, with our new huge image, I'm going to paste. There it is. There's our Pleiades star cluster that we're working with. I'm going to set this to a new layer. Then I'm going to get rid of the background. And then I'm going to crop everything. And there it is. There's a photograph of the Pleiades star cluster that we can work with now. And so here's 62 stacked photographs of the Pleiades star cluster compared to a single photograph of the Pleiades star cluster. And you can also try and save the picture to file, but I have not had very much luck with this method. The reason is every time I save it to file, this happens, and I don't know how to fix that. If you know how to fix that, let me know. It puts these rings around the stars. So I have to copy my pictures to the current clipboard, or copy my current picture to the clipboard, and then I can paste it into GIMP or whatever program that you're working with. You can paste it into there. Okay, cool. I hope this helps you a little bit more with stacking and understanding how to use Deep Sky Stacker. But wait, there's more. Here are some photographs of the Dumbbell Nebula that I took with my 10-inch Dobsonian telescope. And you can see the kind of data that we're working with here. It's very noisy, hard to see what's going on in there. Not a very satisfying photograph on its own. But we have lots of photographs. Let's see how many. 600. We have 650 photographs of the Dumbbell Nebula. Let's see what they look like when they're all combined together. I'm going to just grab them and drag and drop them over here into Deep Sky Stacker. It's going to take a second when you load that many photographs. Oh, there it is. So we have 651 light frames. I'm going to click OK. They're all checked automatically. I'm going to click on one just to see what it looks like. I'm going to mess with my sliders up here in the top right to see if I can get it to look a little bit clearer, see just where the Dumbbell Nebula actually is. Looks like it's a little bit to the left here on that photograph. Over here it's in the middle. I'm going to click on this one down here. This one's to the right. So this was taken with a Dobsonian, and you can see that it's drifting because we were not tracking. And so that means we're going to have a small area to work with and probably a large black border going around the final stacked image. Cool. Now we're going to hit check all just to make sure all the images are checked. I'm going to then register checked pictures. I'm going to go over to the advanced tab. I'm going to select reduce noise by using a median filter. I'm going to compute the number of detected stars. 136. Cool. I'm going to go back to Actions, and I'm going to click OK. I'm going to then click OK under Stacking Steps. And we're stacking. Okay, we just finished stacking the Dumbbell Nebula. I already see it right there in the center. And I see we have some very skinny RGB spikes, but they are all aligned, which is cool. We won't have to do much finagling here. So let's go ahead and check linked settings down here in the bottom left. I'm going to grab the left arrow or the left triangle here on the blue slider, and I'm going to drag it over to the right, and this will amplify our data. I can see that the noise is starting to pick up here on the left, and that's where I'm going to stop with the amplification. Then I'm going to adjust my RGB channels by grabbing the middle triangle of the blue channel and start dragging that to the right so that it gets more into the luminance curve, that black curve right here. Now that I've moved the RGB channels more to the right, I'm going to adjust the steepness of this curve by going over to luminance, and I'm going to then increase the darkness slider, the second darkness slider, all the way over here to the right, so it's at 100%. Then in midtones, I'm going to drop my midtone to about 8 degrees, and then I'm going to come to the second slider here in midtones, and I'm going to move this over a little bit to the right, trying to get the line to go right through the RGB channels right here. And one last thing is the highlights. I've never really talked about this yet. You can adjust the highlights, and usually you can You can see the curve here is getting, the peak of the curve is getting higher, and once you see that these dashed lines start to disappear, that's when you know you've probably gone too far with your highlights. So you can back that off, and I'm going to increase my highlights just a little bit here to 61.4, and we'll see how that looks. Then I'm going to go over to saturation, and I'm going to increase my saturation to 20%. After all of that, I'm going to go ahead and click apply. And cool, there's the dumbbell nebula right there in the middle. I'm just zoomed in with my mouse wheel. The second slider in midtones, I'm going to drag that back over to the left a little bit here. The 32.2, I'm going to click apply. There it is, that's much brighter. Now we can see more edges of the nebula. Some details in there, a little power. Oh, that's cool. And that was taken with a 10-inch Dobsonian telescope. And you can see the 4 points coming off the star. That's a signature of Newtonian telescopes. And then I'm going to copy the current picture to a clipboard. After I've done all those settings, and I like the settings, I like how it looks, I'm going to copy the current picture to the clipboard, and I'm going to go over to my editing program that I'm using, which is GIMP. I'm going to make a new image, and I'm going to make the image ridiculously large, a big white canvas for us to paint or to paste our stacked image on. So here's the big white image, and I'm going to now go to Edit, Paste, and there's the dumbbell nebula. It was copied to our clipboard, and I'm going to set this to a new layer, and I'm going to get rid of that white background. We don't need that anymore, and then I'm going to crop to content, and there it is. I have my image that I can now work with, my stacked image. So I can come over here and crop this if I wanted to. Go and paste, layer to new layer, and then I'm going to get rid of the background there altogether, and I'm going to crop it again, and then I'm going to adjust my curves. And by the way, you don't need to do any of this. If you've gotten this far, you can go ahead and go off the trails if you want to. I'm just showing you how I do some final touches to my photographs. I'm messing with the curves here just to make the nebula a little bit brighter and the background a little bit darker to add some more contrast, make it pop a little bit more. And there, I think that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And there it is. This is how you can stack photographs. You don't need any calibration images. They do help a lot, but yeah, I hope this helped you get through Deep Sky Stacker and get your first images stacked. Good luck!